cellar. You'll notice the lighting's a little different now. My producer says that I look too much like a cadaver in the cellar. So we're going to experiment around with this, and it's got all kinds of settings on it and different color shades, and I have no idea which one looks better. I do know that I look dead there. But I'm trying to figure it out. I like that. And let's see, what else? Oh, there's this too. Yeah. And then it gets brighter. Ooh, nah, that's a little too bright. I don't want to have squint in my own cellar. Anyway, enough fooling around. I hope my audio is loud enough this week. I'm trying to speak a little louder without waking my wife. We'll get right rolling here, shall we? Have you ever used guilds as part of your world story building? Thieves Guild is my favorite, and Fighters is a close second. So many PCs orbit the guilds causing trouble for players or opening the way for players' next adventures. Have I personally? No. Did JD and did he preview the idea of Thieves Guilds with his Phineas Fingers and the Guild of Hobbit Assassins and Thieves and stuff? Anyway, I can see use for them. They can be the driving impetus. You know, you've pissed somebody off in the guild and they're after you and all their members are after you. I can see if you were in an urban setting, I can see using guilds as sort of policemen of their profession. Again, as a big looming, uh-oh, you're in trouble now, the guild is after you type thing. Beyond that, I can see they could have a use in certain campaigns. I've just never had occasion to use them in mine. Remember, I've built that many campaigns since college, and therefore I'm not the best person to ask on the utility of having a guild present. Though they can, like I said, they can be useful, particularly in a shadowy NPC type fashion. Nameless, or a faceless threat, whatever. Okay, next one, bummer. Hope you enjoyed the concert. Was it Santana? How was it? It wasn't. Couple of nights before, 3 nights before, he collapsed in Milwaukee, I believe, got dehydrated, and they canceled the next 6 or 7 shows, including ours. I just hope to God I don't have to wait 2 years for these tickets to be any good like we did for Steely Dan. Shit happens. I certainly don't want Carlos to get ill on my account. I respect the man as a musician, as a community leader, as a spokesman for his people, art collector, and one of the finest guitar players that ever picked a pick. And congratulations on 52 years. We should receive congressional honors. Nah. In fact, when we were at church last week, there were 3 other couples that had us each by a couple, 3 years. So it's not that unusual. But yeah, it is unusual given the law of averages and everything. But thanks. Any advice? Yeah. Don't go to bed mad. Okay. Well done. I love the roaring dragon in the iris at the start of the show. Great addition. Well, you can thank my producer, Jim, for that. He sprung that on me one day and said, why? And I said, oh, yeah, I love it. Let's run. Okay, next. Question. Beginnings, middles, and ends. Or are preconceived endings the kiss of death for GMs? In response to a comment asking for advice on homebrewing campaigns, you stressed the importance of beginnings for adventure hooks. I was just wondering if you put any importance on ends. Well, yeah, I mean, obviously an end's important because it's going to end the campaign or end that phase of the campaign. I think the DM should plan beginnings. He should have a few, if not a handful, of potential middles based on the many beginnings you gave him. But endings, I mean, in my DMing opinion, endings are crafted by the play of the players during and up to this crucial point, this crux in the campaign. So, going into DMing a campaign with anything other than the ending will be when the big bad evil guy is smote, or beyond that, how it should end? Oh God, no, never ever should you predetermine how you think it should end. Always, always, always let the players do that to their benefit or to their detriment. And as we'll see later in a later question, you know, it's just endings are. You might have an idea of how it might end in a very general sense. They'll either confront and destroy or defeat the evil big bad guy, or they'll fall at his hands. Beyond that, the hows and the whys and the wherefores should be organically arrived at through the actions of the players and the course and the what happened in the campaign. My opinion. All right, and so he says, to maybe put it in a different way, the classic cliche about storytelling stresses the import of beginning, middle, and ending. Obviously, the players make the middles, including DMs. In your opinion, is having a predetermined ending in mind too limiting for DMs? Absolutely. If I've learned anything at all in DMing, and good God, I've been doing it since 1974, if I've learned anything at all, is that the players will never perform like you expect them to. Not necessarily the end result, but the how they got there, what they did along the way. That is going to be entirely a product of how the game sessions go over the course of the campaign, whatever length of time this segment of the campaign might take. I mean, let's face it, big campaigns, a game that's been running for several years has a lot of little campaigns in it. We used to call them side quests and agias and things like that, but they should have a lot of those within the overall overarching story plot, whatever. Okay, and then this person then goes on to make a comment with a question. Lately, I'm of the mind that being a good DM is more about maintaining an attitude rather than having a hard and fast approach. This may be a bit of a broad statement, but what say you? P.S. Your cellar sounds so entertaining, it's a wonder you ever go up into the light. Well, my wife's made that a get up here. What are you doing down there all day? Yeah, my cellar can suck my attention up all day long. I even have a toilet down here, so all I have to do is go up and get food. But if I bring it down in the morning and put it in my little mini fridge, I'm good for the day. And I often do that on Tuesdays or Fridays because my wife's gone bowling and playing mahjong and stuff like that on those 2 days. And if I'm not doing something, well, that's what I do. Yeah, being a DM is an attitude, maintaining an attitude of let the players make their own mistakes. Don't mislead them purposely. You can't help it if they make incorrect assumptions to clues that you present or they find along the way. How much of correcting their misconceptions you wish to do is entirely up to you. All right. Okay, looking for some advice. Is there a good way to keep a campaign rolling after a TPK? Only if you smash them flat and roll them in tortillas and cook them later. How did I handle it back in the day? Well, we all rolled up new characters and we started again. Or we kissed those characters goodbye and we played one of the other ones. Because we always had multiple characters going at any given time. Some of us, it was all of one kind. I preferred playing clerics and fighters. And though I did have some success with a couple of magic users, my favorite one to play is a druid, but that's just a personal favorite. Um, okay, for some background, my players have been unintentionally helping a doppelganger, and most recently sold it the true name of a demon. Well, now the doppelganger has a pet demon, and the demon is guarding the deeper part of the dungeon they hadn't been to that has a cloning facility, and well, there's going to be a lot more doppelgangers. My players are going to slay the demon. Well, you're making an assumption there, aren't you? And they are still unaware they've been dealing with a doppelganger, so I think they're going to be woefully unprepared for the fight, and the odds of a TPK are pretty high. Okay, you know, it's like yesterday evening when a friend came over, we played a board game together. Before that, I was watching a couple of cuts out of Game of Thrones. And my favorite one is when the dragon comes and destroys the Lannister army. And I wish I could show that film clip to every single role player that thinks that they ought to be able to go kill a dragon. A dragon wiped out an entire army. If you were to face a dragon, it would have to be with cunning and guile and maybe poison. I, I don't know. But in my humble opinion, dragons should be left the hell alone. They didn't get to be that ancient age by being stupid or easy. So, how do I prepare? What do you do after TPK? You roll up new characters. Now, I'm going to just dance around this topic a little bit. And I'm not really condemning or approving. I'm just simply questioning. Just how pissed off is your group liable to be to find out that you've been doppelgangering them? I guess it's not a word. But I mean, really, come on. Is the party of such a low level that they cannot detect anything or catch any clues or anything like that? There's a saying about stupid games, stupid prizes. Knowingly taking on a bunch of doppelgangers would be one of those stupid games, and you'd be bound to win a stupid prize. However, if in those circumstances when I have had something that appears to be something other than it is, I generally toss a few breadcrumbs around to enable them to figure out that maybe it's not exactly what they think it is, or everything isn't exactly as it seems, or something of that nature. I almost think it's cheating on the DM's part to set them up for something like this, where they have no possibility of knowing. Doing that to a low-level campaign, to a bunch of low-level players that are just beginning, could be a cautionary tale, if you catch my drift. But to do it to a bunch of established players that have been playing for a while, maybe they've made a few levels, and to just croak them all in a TPK, I don't know. And I say this as having had a reputation for TPKs that I quite thoroughly deserved and earned. and then had second thoughts afterwards, life-altering experience, etc., etc. So just roll up another. And if they're all lower levelers, say 6 and below, then when you roll new characters, use an average die and use that to determine your starting level. Don't make them go back to 1. And I only say that because it's a really sneaky thing that's going to happen to them with doppelgangers and that. And maybe that's too much of a challenge for a low-level. You might be expecting too much of a low-level party to be able to handle a doppelganger. Just my thoughts. Here goes one. He's okay, and he concludes with, I'm thinking of having the game pick up sometime later when the new party is living under the tyranny of an army of clone doppelgangers and their demon servant. Yeah, that's one way to do it. And if it enables the players to construct some sort of continuity between their previously now long deceased 20 years ago players and a family member, a cousin, a brother, a son, whatever. Ooh, that could be lots of fun. Lots of fun. I remember reading the article, "The Dog Ate Your Dice," back in the 90s. Yeah, well, I wrote it in the 70s. I believe that went into a strategic review. That was one of those cases where I was filling, particularly with strategic review. The last couple, 3 that I did, I filled with odds and ends and things, introduced some new things, tried out a couple of things, and in this case, filled some space. I had some space, and I decided to do something lighthearted, because already D&D was getting awful serious. So what to do? Of course, my favorite is the mano a mano, which is only played by hairy-chested men, and involves snatching chest hairs out by the handful and counting them and using that for a die roll. I just wouldn't recommend I wouldn't recommend any roll that requires a 20-sider, or you're going to get a lot of really small results, or you're going to get that crap popped out of you from a guy, big bald spot on his chest. It was just for fun. The Mexican jumping beans and all those kind of things. The old quadrant thing. Anybody that ever went to college and took a final knows about that one. Tim, I'm sure you've mentioned this before, but I need a refresher. What makes a good adventure module? Okay, if you have an existing campaign, a good adventure module is one that will drop in somewhere into your campaign and not need anything more than superficial tie-ins. That means it doesn't go against the grain of your play. It doesn't obviously contradict anything else that's been going on. Now, in general terms, it should be balanced. It should be fair. Now, fair means that the party has just as good a chance of dying if they do something ill-advised, stupid, or unlucky as they do succeeding. I never created a monster that didn't have a weak point. I never set up a scenario or an encounter that didn't have a workaround. So that's my thoughts on it. It's got to be interesting. It's got to be of a suitable level for the players. That's why we put stuff on there like for medium level players or players 6 level and above, or this kind of thing. That's why we put it on there, to give you an idea that if it's for high-level characters, 9+, well, that's going to be fairly tough, and you can expect a lot of dying and anguish and pain. All right. We got some stuff about Gandalf again, and I'm going to address it in a minute. And it's going to be the last time I'm going to address it. In the meantime, I'm going to skip. Please, please, please make an entire video about this topic regarding using role-playing games in clubs and organizations for children and adults alike. Don't just hide it away in a private email like that. The video can be an open form letter that can be used as a template to help players all over the world. I can't think of anyone more qualified than yourself to do so. Well, thanks for the compliment. See, when people ask me a question, I don't have any compunction about answering it, occasionally or often at great length. But I have a hard time selling myself. And so, if I did do a video, it would be more along the lines on my thoughts of, or my thoughts about, than how to do it. And I think you got a good idea there, and I think I may well do that. For something like this, I'm going to have to sit down, take some notes, do an outline, because I don't want to come on and sound like an idiot. But I think there's a lot of good things that role-playing can provide to both children and adults. When I was at GaryCon, I did an interview with the Wounded Warrior Project, and how they do and how they might use role-playing more often and what they could expect from it. I got a lot of thoughts on it, on how to use it with juveniles. So, yeah, maybe that's a good idea. But I have to have somebody else do the marketing, because I don't want to come out, hey, this is what I think this is what nah. But yeah, I do believe in it. I truly do. So, okay. Okay, here we go. Back into referencing Lord of the Rings again. And this person says, apologies for referencing it again, but I felt it only fair to state the central argument that the Balrog requires Gandalf to be high level is quashed by the fact that both are Maiar, although albeit Balrog's a fallen angel type. My question is, I'm of the opinion that Balrog in Lord of the Rings was also doing stuff that an OSR 5th level magic could pull off. Am I wrong? Again, I'm sorry for going back to Professor Tolkien, but I guess it just itches my nerd bone. Okay, now I got some more Tolkien stuff. Let's see, where is it? Oh, it comes later. I'm going to address this again when it comes later. I've got several other interesting things to talk about before that. But the original premise of the article was there is nothing in the books that make the case that he's anything other than a 5th level magic user, as crafted and created and limited by the original edition's rules. Everything he did, a 5th level wizard can do, magic user can do. Nothing he did would indicate anything else. Was he? Who knows? All right. Tim, question, is cheese the worst stuff PCs can carry into a dungeon? Cheese is beneficial and eminently portable, but I wonder if its tendency towards strong aroma and ability to keep intensifying that aroma might attract monster types. Would a granddaddy delver instruct his grandchildren never to take cheese on a dungeon delve? And then on a slight tangent, should wary delvers use perfume, antiperspirant, or other masking scents, like a coating of monster crap? More on that in a minute. to confuse, obfuscate, or outwit monstrous olfactory senses. Is this approach XP worthy? XP for BO. All right. Stray comment that pertains in this case. During the Vietnam War, the Force Recon guys, the Green Berets, the guys that had to go behind the lines for extended periods of time on scouts or whatever, before they went out in the field, they learned to quit eating meat because apparently Americans smell different. They stink differently because we eat so much meat, whereas the Vietnamese eat fish for our proteins. I'm just talking the proteins. And apparently, BO off American soldiers that have grown up eating hamburgers will allow them to be sniffed out, literally. And I'm not joking here. This is serious shit. They could be sniffed out in the jungle. So, having seen that in real life, yes, if I was in a campaign game, I would say that cheese is not necessarily a good idea if it has a heavy odor. Stinking Chilton and some of those famously raunchy English cheeses would immediately come to mind. Now, on the other hand, when I play my Wheel of Blame game, I don't care what they bring. I'm real loosey-goosey on that, and I don't worry about it because on the Wheel of Blame, the wind is always coming from behind the players. So no matter what they do or don't have, if smelling or being scented has anything to do with it, they're already in the bag. Too bad. Now, having said that, I wouldn't have a problem with devising some sort of wrap that would mask foul cheeses up to maybe 90 or 90, even 95%, and using cheese as a bait. That could be handy. I mean, catfish will go. I used to make catfish bait when I was a kid with Velveeta cheese and Wheaties and mainly Velveeta cheese and Wheaties, and we baked it into dough balls and caught catfish with it because they can smell it downstream for a long ways because cheese is, as the writer states here, it can be pungent. Now, you mentioned crap. On many occasions, in both the Arredondo adventures and in the Wheel of Blame adventures, I have caused the player characters to be pelted with poo. And therefore, perhaps for the rest of the Wheel adventure, or perhaps just for the remainder of that encounter, they stink. No sneaking through the grass, because remember, the wind's always coming from behind. Wearing an antiperspirant? No, because they have a scent of their own. I personally, if I were doing the delving, would not put on anything that didn't smell funky and natural. Nothing. And that area right there, you can have a ton of fun with DMs and players. Be creative. What kind of technology do elves have? I can't find much on this subject. Dwarves have gadgets and devices. But what about elves? They don't. They don't need it. Unless you consider crafting magical things technology. But no, it's magic. When you can make magical swords that, cut through iron, you don't need a whole lot of technology. They can craft really good bows. And if you believe the movies, they can shoot really fast and really accurate with them. But They don't need technology. For one thing, they don't need clocks and timepieces because they live by the seasons. They're very, very, very long-lived, so who wants to count all those hours? I'd say they have little or none except for their ability to craft and create magic. You don't need it. Okay, how do I like Conan? Adventures in an age undreamed of. He's impressed with the company, Modifius. Has special interest in Conan RPGs. I'm not aware of it. I have a problem with any RPG that is crafted too carefully, particularly onto a movie. Or in this case, Conan, an extremely iconic literary figure. It's like playing Star Trek the RPG. If you don't get to be Captain Kirk, maybe Spock, what the hell's the point in playing? You damn sure don't want to be a guy in a red shirt. You know what's going to happen to you before too much is said and done. It's I don't feel it's all that hard to lift a bunch of stuff out of somebody else's work and tack it onto the framework of an RPG. And I don't mean lift in a criminal sense. I mean in the old sense we used it. We lifted stuff, we borrowed stuff. Now somebody else goes on to comment that it seems to be really well put together and all that. But have been some comments online about the rules being overly complex and a lot of page flipping. Okay, now we're going to get back to Gandalf. And I'm going to say this now to you, the primary poster, Robbie. You know who you are. And anybody else that posts on here knows who you are. And I'm going to give you this warning. Watch it. What gives you the right to tell me to go pound sand? Yes, we're talking about interpretation. The original post was, nothing in there says he is anything other than a 5th level. He did no feats of magic, nothing else. So, let's see, we'll go on to the next one that replied to this. Your answer is that he was very persuasive, nothing high level about that. He could summon the eagles, speaking with an animal, or in D&T terms, the spell Speak with Animals, which I'll note is not a high level spell. I think you're letting... Damn, got big black ants all over the basement tonight. I'm going to put something out. We don't have a cat anymore, so I don't have to worry about poisoning it. That's probably why we get ants. We don't have a cat anymore. She probably ate them. Let's see who got off the spell there. This responder thinks that letting your bias of the legend of Gandalf overshadowing the actual facts. Also, a fifth magic user, and one he was not a chump. All right, so then, arguer, fast becoming a troll, comes back with, just because you're a high-level wizard in 14th doesn't mean you have access to all those spells in the book. In my opinion, he had more powerful spells, like some kind of persuasive charm spell to stoke morale on a massive scale of all the armies. You don't need evidence for a theater of the mind piece fiction. Well, of course you do. If you're going to go to any theater, you got to have some idea of the plot. You can't just go in wondering what's going on and sit down in front of something like Kentucky Fried Movie and figure out what the hell's going on. Because you can't. So here we go where we get really nasty. He goes on to say that Gandalf had a way of uniting diverse antagonistic people against common real enemies. Yeah, well, when he showed up, the good guys took heart because of his reputation. Now, we all know reputations are maybe 30% fact and 70% embellishment, but it doesn't matter. If you believe that God is on your side, if you believe that the mighty wizard Gandalf is on your side, if you believe that right is on your side, then seeing a visual symbol of that belief is boosting morale. Okay, fiction is an entirely open interpretation by each and every reader. Yes, but you still fail to see the original premise. The premise was nothing he did proves he was anything other than fifth level. And so then you go on to say that's why it's called effing fiction. In fact, see my comments from last week or go pound sand. Well, I tell you what. One more post like this, and you'll be banned from my channel. You have a tendency to ask jerk-off, jackass questions as it is, often that I ignore because I don't want to waste my time on it. And I don't know who exactly you think you are, that you have all this knowledge that we're not privy to. As you say, it's your interpretation. Fine. Interpret this. And the final response was the highest thing that Gandalf did was to take down some of Moria on the Balrog that ultimately slowed it. By the time he engaged it, Gandalf was weakened from whatever he did to bring down some mountain on his dome. Yeah, I'm okay with that. Let's see, did I miss anything? I guess not. What's new? Been playing. There's a board game out by a company from Ohio. Now I'm trying to think of the name of the company right now. But anyway, the board game is called 878 Vikings. And you really ought to look into it. 2 to 4 players. Lots of die rolling. So it's not like a serious war game. Many scenarios. From the invasion of England with the Great Army, to small localized stuff. Chasing Arthur Alfred, chasing Alfred through the marshes, and a few others of varying sizes. Excellent game. I highly recommend it. They have an expansion out that's got some more neat scenarios in it, but it's lots of dice and infinite amount of replayability. I think you can, because it's never going to come out the same way, because dice rolls, you'd have to play 50 games to start having the dice level off to where it got to be commonplace or it felt the same. Let's see what else is going on. Selling a few things on RPG auctions. I'll definitely think about doing that video. Maybe I'll do a warm-up as one of the Patreon obligations, and then do a more formal one and edit it and put it together nice and just put it out there for the public. It's a good idea, though, and I'll certainly think about it. Getting interviewed by Forbes magazine next week. They're doing it. I guess they're looking at the resurgence of D&D. And as there's few people alive out there that have played longer than I have, I guess they expect me to have some sort of unique position or opinion, which I probably will Let's see. Anything else? Gaming wise? No. Gen Con's coming up. Gen Con's being sued by some guy that I'm not even sure. Gen Con's being sued because they didn't let some guy in or let him have space or whatever. I don't know. If I was running a convention and if you were a dick, and I don't know if this guy was a dick, but it sounds like he might have been, which is why I never name names, and you were a dick, well, I'm going to tell you, don't come back to my con and be a dick again. Now, I'm not exactly sure what it all is, but I just found it. They're suing Peter and his wife and the LLC all at once because of sour grapes, I guess. I don't know. The dumpster fire continues in Lake Geneva. Now they're posting salacious cartoons. Bunch of morons up there. I don't know what they're all drinking, but they are really, really, really ought to quit drinking it because they're all just having their brains dribble out their ass. Ernie, I give up. You've obviously had too many gallons of the Kool-Aid. Now, I don't know how well this lighting works, but I hope it looks better. And if my producer says he likes it, I guess I'll keep it. Then the next thing is to get a new camera. And finally, I'm thinking about getting a green screen background and putting in weird shit. But that's an awful lot of work. So, that's somewhere else. That's it, I guess. Stay cool. Lord knows we're having a hot summer. Next time I'll see any of you is in Gamehole, late October. Until then, Dodada Govi.
Curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs. Still quite a feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Last man around when them rates went down. Calling Gary in that Lake Geneva town. Hey Gary, it's an awful mess. Let me edit, we'll have success. D&D and Dragon Magazine. He's a curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs, but he's still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Magic missile, it's a mortar shell. Make it hit in the first level spell. Brought psionics to the game to attack that wizard's brain. PSR and fantasy, collection of micro armory, tight with tramp under a tree, high as could be. He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs, but he's still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Curmudgeon.